Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Inside the Americas. Coming up, U.S. Republicans end up with another failed attempt to stop Obamacare, with no's coming from within their own ranks. Donald Trump continues his beef with the NFL, tweeting players should be barred for kneeling during the national anthem, comments prompting even one of his football team-owning supporters to bend the knee. And after English, French, and Arabic, France 24 launches its latest channel in Spanish. I'm Jeannie Godula. First, the collapse of the U.S. healthcare bill has made the already bad infighting in the Republican Party even worse. The latest attempt to overturn Obamacare failed this week after 3 Senate Republicans said they could not support it. That's infuriated the party's conservative flank and could lead to some major fallout in the U.S. congressional elections next year.
With a Republican majority in both houses of Congress, repealing Obamacare was never meant to be this difficult. Supporters of the replacement healthcare bill wanted it to transfer responsibility for health insurance from the federal government to individual states to increase efficiency and bring down costs. It wasn't to be.
Well, it took 18 months to pass Obamacare. It's going to take a while to repeal it.
We've made the decision, since we don't have the votes, we will postpone that vote. Okay? Am I disappointed? Absolutely.
The bill's fate was sealed when a third Republican senator announced her refusal to support it. Susan Collins, a moderate, said she couldn't agree with the bill's funding cuts to Medicaid, the health program for low-income citizens that covers 1 in 5 of her constituents. Ultra-conservative Senator Rand Paul, meanwhile, says it doesn't go far enough.
My opinion from the get-go on this particular bill, the Graham-Cassidy bill, is that it's fake repeal. It keeps over 90% of the spending, keeps over 90% of the taxes, and simply reshuffles the formula.
Finally, there's Arizona Senator John McCain. Currently undergoing cancer treatment himself, McCain says he can't blindly support a bill that's been insufficiently scrutinized. In July already, he was vocal in his opposition to the first version of the draft legislation.
All we've managed to do is make more popular a policy that wasn't very popular when we started trying to get rid of it. I voted for the motion to proceed to allow debate to continue and amendments to be offered. I will not vote for this bill as it is today.
As the latest health bill looked set to collapse, doctors, patients' associations and Democrats came together in support of Obamacare. Obama's signature law took the percentage of uninsured under 65s from 18% in 2010 to 10% today. As it stands, these protesters have 3 Republican senators to thank for the survival of the status quo.
Now, in America, football players are idols for millions. It's unusual, however, for them to take part in political protests. But all that has changed ever since Donald Trump singled out players who refused to stand for the national anthem. The controversy went up a notch this week when Jerry Jones, the owner of the Dallas Cowboys and a known Trump supporter, knelt alongside his team ahead of the national anthem as a sign of solidarity with the rest of the NFL. Delano D'Souza reports.
Kneeling in protest against the U.S. president, an act never seen before in American football. To understand how it all began, we need to go back to 2016, when Colin Kaepernick, a quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers, knelt during the national anthem to draw attention to police violence against African Americans, an act the president recently said was disrespectful.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a b*** off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired!
Displeased with the president's statement, the captain of the Golden State Warriors announced he'd decline an invitation to the White House after winning the NBA championships.
I don't want to go. That's really it. I mean, that's kind of that's the nucleus of my belief, and I think it is different. It's not just me going to the White House. If it was, this would be a pretty short conversation.
Like Colin Kaepernick, other sports figures have marked American history with their political engagement. Boxing champion Muhammad Ali opposed the Vietnam War and refused the draft.
Go 10,000 miles away from home here in America to drop bombs and bullets on other innocent brown people who's never bothered us. And I will say directly, no, I will not go.
It was an act of resistance that came with consequences. Ali was stripped of his world heavyweight title and had his boxing license suspended. This until the Supreme Court overturned charges of draft evasion. Sprinters Tommy Smith and John Carlos, meanwhile, were ordered to leave an Olympic stadium and were suspended from the U.S. track team. The pair made history after giving the Black Power salute from their Olympic podium to bring attention to racial injustice in America during the Summer Games in 1968. The photograph of their heads lowered with their fists in the air has been enshrined in history as a symbol of protest by athletes. Colin Kaepernick, the man who reignited the firestorm, is now without a contract, but his actions have not gone unnoticed. Time magazine named Kaepernick one of the 100 most influential people in the world in 2016.
Let's take a look now at some other news from across the Americas this week. The U.S. government says contractors have begun building prototypes of President Trump's proposed border wall with Mexico. That marks a milestone in one of the president's main campaign promises. 8 proposed models are being built in a remote area of San Diego, but the work is months behind schedule, held up by losing bidders whose protests were eventually denied. Customs and Border Protection may pick several winners or none at all. Venezuela has accused the United States of psychological terrorism designed to bring down the government. That's after it was included in a list of 8 countries targeted by a travel ban. The U.S. included Venezuela over what it called poor security and a lack of cooperation with American authorities. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro said Trump isolated the U.S. with his speech at the UN last week, a speech where Trump called the Venezuelan leader a dictator. Security officials in Brazil say they got a giant favela in Rio de Janeiro back under control after a week of fighting. Close to 1,000 soldiers and police were sent in to battle heavily armed drug traffickers. Well-organized drug gangs in the favela have long held sway in an uneasy coexistence with outgunned police. But the status quo collapsed when a rival gang entered in an attempt to take over. And the Brazilian government has backtracked on its decision to open up a huge reserve in the Amazon rainforest to commercial mining. President Michel Temer signed a decree in August opening the reserve, which is roughly the size of Switzerland and is rich in gold, iron, and other minerals. The decree was sharply criticized by indigenous rights groups, environmentalists, and the Catholic Church, among others. It's time now for our number of the week, 500 million. That's the number of Spanish speakers in the world, and they can now tune in to France 24's new channel in Spanish. After English, French, and Arabic, it's the latest addition to the France 24 family based in Colombia.
It's the same channel you've put your trust in since 2006.
Buenos días. Hoy es un día muy
But in a language France 24 viewers are not used to hearing.
de France 24 en español.
A few thousand kilometers away from Paris, dozens of our journalists will now cover international news in Spanish.
To develop in Latin America, it's vital to speak the most important languages on the continent, at least Spanish. It's a language that's essential in the digital world, and all of the major international channels have a Spanish version. As French people, we have the same Latin roots, and such important relationships with Latin American countries, so it was long overdue.
Brand new offices for a brand new team that has been in the works for many months. From today on, some 7 million households across 12 countries in Latin America can finally discover France 24. The language and the offices will be different, but the Spanish channel will share the same editorial line as the French, English, and Arabic channels, a French perspective on international news.
The programming of the Spanish channel will be exactly the same as the others. News every half hour and an update on major stories a quarter past and a quarter before every hour. There will be news on culture, the environment, history, and sports, and there will be all of the same documentaries and special reports. We'll have a very strong interaction between the 3 existing France 24 channels and the Spanish channel.
France 24 continues to expand. In addition to our team in Bogota, the new channel will rely on correspondents and reporters already present in Latin America and all over the world to cover the continent's latest news. On the digital side, this new adventure started just a few days ago. The Spanish version of the France 24 website will keep you informed 24 hours a day.
Well, France 24's culture team also got into the Spanish launch, shooting 2 special shows from Colombia. We will leave you now with a little taste of one of those. Here is our lovely culture editor, Eve Jackson, showing off her twinkle toes alongside some incredible young dancers. Enjoy.
Para limpiar